Hi, everybody. I'm going to look at a unique use of NRI data to actually attempt an approach to look at how to value ecosystem services on rangelands. This can be actually applied to any land use, but we did a project in roughly from 2018 through 2020 to take a look at ecosystem service valuation in the Central Great Plains. And without the NRI data, we would not have had a baseline to get our valuation from. So our project vision was to really just build a framework, a long-standing framework that NRCS could use, which would actually add ecosystem service values into our conservation planning, reporting, and decision-making processes. And if you're familiar with how NRCS reports, it's typically acres treated or feet of fence or feet of pipeline. None of those metrics really tell the public what we've achieved and that we've achieved anything beyond the fence line. So I teamed up with Earth Economics. They are a nonprofit organization out of Tacoma, Washington. They've been doing ecosystem service valuation for years and in multiple countries. And so you'll see Angela Fletcher, the project director there on the right, and then of course myself on the left. We worked together with quite a few partners, I'll share those at the end, to really take a look in the Central Great Plains. What are the values of ecosystem services, or what's also termed as nature's value, within those Central Great Plains? And just so you're aware, more than 1/3 of our nation's land is designated as grazing land. Now, if we only count the non-federal grazing lands, that means over 584 million acres are used to feed and raise our livestock, provide food and essential byproducts to our growing nation, and offer life-sustaining ecosystem services. All right, so I want you to take a look at these three photos. They're actually the same rangeland plot. And so you can see over time, we moved from the left photo being not very diverse, the middle photo having a bit more diversity, the right photo being quite diverse in comparison to where we started from. Each of those photos, again, same plot over time, provide a forage base where a person can graze livestock, they can buy and sell and grow livestock on that land. The frame on the right, however, really offers some extra ecosystem services, such as improved pollinator services, aesthetics for people who want to take photos of wildflowers, recreation opportunities, reduced disaster risk related to either drought or flood, or in some cases fire. Not, I wouldn't say that in this case, but so you can see just on that one rangeland plot that you can change your management, adapt your grazing management to allow for some extra ecosystem services. And now foundational to the ecosystem service evaluation framework that we built is the idea that nature, particularly on rangelands, produces assets that have value to humans. And that value is often called natural capital. And as ranchers make conservation-minded decisions, their pastures, the ranch, the watershed, and potentially towns and adjacent watersheds receive those benefits. Now, ecosystem services are termed as both market benefits or non-market benefits. The ecosystem services that we can buy, sell, or trade in existing markets include livestock and forage, and they also produce jobs. These are called market benefits. Ecosystem services that are not bought and sold or traded in regular existing markets are, such as wildlife habitat, water quality, and recreation, are called non-market benefits. And so the American public needs to be aware of the NRCS conservation investments in the Great Plains. So we've invested over $63 million per year on over 2 million acres treated each year in the Central Great Plains, and those figures were from 2008 through 16. And you can see here the different major land resource areas that are darker colored. Those received more conservation contracts than the lighter colored major land resource areas. This was our footprint for our study. And so if we continue to try and report things in terms of, acres treated or feet of pipeline or feet of fence, the public doesn't see that those ecosystem goods and services are actually being improved. And so the American public remains largely unaware of the great strides in conservation being made by ranchers and the NRCS. We can really improve and expand the way that we demonstrate our successes to the general public by including ecosystem services in the planning process. Now, what are the ecological and economic implications of conservation actions? That's what we're trying to answer. And we really want to try and capture those implications beyond the fence line. All right, so nature's value, those ecosystem services, really kind of has to focus on a land health metric. So we looked at rangeland health, and then of course the conservation practices that are being applied. So when landowners apply conservation practices, the ecological effects are often experienced beyond the fence line. Communities and watersheds benefit. Some of the ecosystem service values that we examined include those shown in this chart. You can see that there's 12 different ecosystem services that we valued listed on the left. And then across the top, there are 3 of the main different general land cover categories that all contribute to rangeland in our study. So you can see where, for example, we got air quality values predominantly on grassland and shrubland. And then you can see what other types of land cover had other ecosystem services valued within this study. And here, when I talk about ecosystem services valued, I'm referring to the ability to do benefit transfer. That's an economic method. Benefit transfer from studies either within this region or just outside this region that have applicability to the region. So these are actual dollars per acre. Or dollar data, I should say, behind those. All right, so how did we use rangeland health in this whole matrix and the framework? We took the baseline National Resources Inventory data from 2004 through 2008, and we charted what counties had different departure values for their for their attribute scores. So you'll see on the left, the geographic representation of the histograms that are on the right. And so soil site stability, hydrologic function were fairly mostly stacked histograms to the right, which means their median health attribute score was closer to a none to slight. The further that the histogram shifts to the left, the middle or the left, that means that you're departed moderately to extreme or extremely departed. So you really want these histograms to be more on the right side of the charts, on the right side. And so as we apply conservation to these landscapes, we want to see how the rangeland health values would shift, hopefully more to the right, which would then provide more ecosystem services or a better quality or duration of those ecosystem services. And we use the literature to tell us what types, the degree of change, if you will, that we had from when we applied a conservation practice. How did that practice change soil and site stability, hydrologic function, and or biotic integrity? So we all realize that without sufficient data, and in this case from the NRI, from literature, we have a really hard time demonstrating the value of healthy functioning ecosystems and that conservation practices may be underrepresented in policy and planning decision-making if we're not actually capturing what the effect on the ecosystem services are. But by quantifying these values in terms of dollars per acre is actually easier said than done. So think of it this way: we don't buy or sell good air quality or improved wildlife habitat. And so how do we assign a dollar value? In this study, we actually assigned it based on the benefit transfer method, which is a recognized method in the literature. And I'm not going to go into the details. I will give you the link to the study at the bottom of my talk, and you guys can go there and read all the gory details. But I will share with you the summary of what we found. So over a 9-year study period, which ran from 2008 through 2016, the results that we found on applying brush management or prescribed grazing were estimated to increase ecosystem service values between $15 to $33 million in the Central Great Plains. So you can see here the graphic is changing based on the year that the practice was applied. You'll see the first 3 tiles are the rangeland health attributes and how those are changing over time with the application or implementation of brush management or prescribed grazing, or in some cases both. And then the 4th tile is how those ecosystem service values, the dollar value per acre, changed within each major land resource area with the application of those practices, because those practices changed the health attributes associated with the land. And you can see here some of the bars, the average percent change is really low. We never did have a value that went below 0 though, so everything is having some kind of a positive effect. And then, so annually, what do we come up with just in this region? Every year, based on the conservation that NRCS is applying, we are actually increasing the ecosystem service values anywhere from 1.7 to $3 million. And then if you look at that on a per acre basis, that's just an average increase in ecosystem service values, anywhere from about $2.28 to $4.93 per year. So this graphic right here, again, the darker the color, the greater the value, but it's basically showing by county the dollar per acre per year improvement that we were able to calculate. So we have to recognize that there are data and knowledge gaps in this type of an assessment. So which ecosystem service values on which land cover types produce the greatest non-market value changes in our study area? So what we found, proportionally, the change in ecosystem service value due to brush management and prescribed grazing being applied. Again, this was literature driven, this was benefit change values, and you can see air quality and climate control, disaster risk reduction, and water quality were the 4 different ecosystem service values that had the highest ability to change the ecosystem service value rating when we applied those practices. So that's where we had a lot of the data, and by saying a lot of the data, there's not much. And so where do we have some large gaps in ecosystem service valuation in the Central Great Plains? That would be on categories such as water conveyance, water storage, water conservation, and then invasive plants, which goes to the biological ecosystem service category. And then soil quality and retention needs more data, as well as habitat quality and availability needs more data. So research on several of the above topics is ongoing, but much of it lacks economic data. And so we really would love to have more economic data on basically any location in the country. And I will say that this work obviously could not have been completed without the NRCS NRI data. And our project partners were vast. We had, of course, Earth Economics and NRCS. We also had some private consultants and some private ranches, several universities, the ERS, or the Economic Research Service, the Office of the Chief Economist at USDA, the ARS, the Agricultural Research Service, and of course we had also Society for Range Management and Synergy Resource Solutions as partners. And so just I'll close with just saying that, you know, our nation's grazing lands really provide life-sustaining services from nature. The fact that we have healthy soils, balanced plant composition, the ability to capture energy and exchange nutrients, the ability to capture, store, and filter and release water throughout the year, having clean air. When these resources and processes are in balance, the land is productive and our quality of life is really enhanced. And the idea behind this study is to show that, you know, while the rancher might derive some financial benefits from NRCS cost share assistance, the community also derives benefits, as well as the ecology, the ecological systems. Everybody is receiving some suite of benefits in this whole conservation approach that NRCS has on private lands. And so with that, I will close with just the location to find the interactive summary and the PDF report, where we go through all of our methods. We have all of our references, and feel free to check it out.